Hey everyone, welcome to Leap Week 5. We're here today to dive into the areas of stress and sleep and why they are often the missing links in achieving our transformation and to creating a better existence for ourselves in the midst of that. So this is a really important topic as far as I'm concerned. It's week 4, but really it probably could be week 1 because a lot of these things are issues that we want to actually tackle ahead of everything else. But because often where we dive into is our nutrition and fitness, we started there, but I want you to think backwards a little bit now that you've got a handle on what some of those nutrition and fitness concepts are, and now look at how stress and the issue of sleep, could actually fit better into those areas and make them better. And that's kind of the goal of what we're going to be talking about today. So, along with nutrition and fitness, like I said, there's a host of other lifestyle elements that are going to greatly affect how our bodies function. It's easy to tack our goals to the standards of food and exercise improvements because that's traditionally where our diet industry goes with that. Is that it's kind of our fault that we're not eating well or we're not exercising enough, and that's why we find we have dysfunction in our bodies and the resulting weight gain. But that's really selling ourselves short if we're not looking at the whole picture of sort of our mind body wellness and where all that fits in, and just how much impact that can actually have on all of it we're trying to balance out. So managing stress is one of those missing links that is actually really crucial. Of course, the other one is the quality of our sleep, and these two are usually linked in many ways, of course. But the point here is that we're going to talk about how hormones actually play a role in both of those things, and why they work together in the way that they do, and some of the signs that we can tell that it may not be working for us. So that is getting onto the track then of this. We're going to start with stress because stress is going to be where we're stemming all of this from in the end. So let's think about stress for a minute. What do you think of when think of stress? Can you think of what some of your sources of stress might be? Do you even have stress in your life? Maybe you don't feel that you have stress in your life. And that's often a really common response as well. I'm not too stressed about things, or my stress isn't as much as somebody else's stress. And so we kind of play sometimes the effects of what we're feeling down a little bit. But in fact, stress is really anything that kind of causes like a flight or fight response from our body, and sort of that's maybe a simple way to look at it. But it's something we think of being traumatic, but there's lots of other things that we may not see as being traumatic in our lives that actually create that same response of our bodies needing to either sort of fight a little bit or escape from what we're faced with. So this can come from both positive or negative sources of issues in our life. It can be long-term chronic things, or it can be just short-term circumstances. So we could experience stress due to something like a flat tire, which is sort of a short-term, not a real traumatic thing to our lives, but it still is going to cause us possibly some stress, or it could be something that is causing us chronic stress. That could be because of a job or a relationship or something that is ongoing in our lives. So either way, both of those things can be causing us stress. So how we manage stress is really key, and identifying our triggers and understanding our responses is really key to that as well. So some possible stress triggers, I want to make the point that, often we think of stress as being from a bad situation, but it can also be found in the midst of positive situations as well. So, I mean, we can think of something like parenthood, or a job that we actually really love, and those things do cause some layers of stress to our lives. Being a parent is wonderful, and we would never give that up, but it does, especially when kids are little. You're not getting sleep. you're tending to them all day long, you may be putting your own needs aside, that is, causing stress to your body, even though it's something that is kind of inevitable. You can't really help it, and it's just part of life. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just is what it is. So those are sometimes where stress, we think of it as a good thing, but actually it does have some negative effects on our body. But then often we think of, stress in those negative terms, like it can be, triggers can be from a relationship, from the stress from your work or your job, unfinished responsibilities, family needs, unresolved issues, being just too busy causes stress. The possibilities are really endless, and it's really unique to our own circumstances. As well, those are emotional sources of stress. Those are things that kind of play on our psyches a little bit, but there's also some things that are physical sources of stress that we might not always identify as well. So injury, illness, infection, those types of things, lack of sleep, over-exercising, or lack of exercise as well, malnourishment, vitamin or macro deficiency. So if you're not eating enough protein, you're not giving your body the building blocks it needs. Overfeeding. So all of those things can actually cause stress to the body. Not eating enough causes a lot of stress to the body because it doesn't have the tools it needs. If you were starving in the desert, that would obviously be a stress to your body, but we don't think of it the same way when we are actually well fed. We just aren't either eating enough of the right stuff, or we purposefully starve ourselves. And the same thing with my vitamin or macro deficiency. We could still be eating too much food, calorie-wise, but if we're not getting the right tools or the right vitamins, then our body will respond with some stress because it doesn't have what it needs. Of course, eating too much is also a stress in the system because our body is going into overtime trying to deal with all of that excess. So all of those things can be physical sources of stress. One thing I want to point out as well is the over-exercising. So again, that's where something that seemingly is good and we should be doing can actually work against us. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute as well. But no matter who you are, most of us are going to experience stress in our lives, to some degree. Even the most healthy, well-balanced people are going to experience maybe an injury or some illness or something. And so that, of course, is going to cause some form of stress as well. Again, how we manage it is going to be key, as well as figuring out how to balance our lives effectively, so that we have a better, more positive impact on our hormones in the end. So what happens when we are dealing with stress, especially on the chronic level, is that stress starts to form layers. We get it piled and piled on top of each other in this chronic circumstances that we might be experiencing. And so the more that we pile on, of course, the greater impact it's going to have. Of course, one of the results of this chronic layering of stress is going to be a dysfunctional metabolism. And again, go back to what metabolism means. It doesn't mean whether you're burning fat or not. That's part of it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't indicate how many calories you can take in. It's talking about your whole well-being and how well your body can function and manage and build. So stress is going to start to deteriorate our overall metabolism. Weight gain is a common symptom of this, and since we're talking in these terms and talking about weight management here, it is good thing to understand that weight gain is a common symptom of this, despite sometimes dietary or exercise habits. But in that regard, dieting and increasing exercise can actually work against you if this is the case. So if you are already feeling like there's those layers of chronic stress in your life, but you also need to lose weight, then typically we don't want to point you to restrictive diet and increase exercise. And again, we'll talk about that in just a little bit more. So again, these perceived good things can actually add stress layers to your life. And that's what we want to try and eliminate. So it can be helpful to address the sources of stress before simply making the symptom of weight gain all about restricting food and increasing exercise. So we want to address, again, the stress. This is why I said this could probably go before all the nutrition and fitness points we made earlier, and really talk about getting to the source of that stress. Because if you're somebody who maybe doesn't have any stress in your life, it's not an issue, then this might not be something that needs to be addressed first. It may just be a lifestyle practice to include, but if you do have significant stress in any of those forms in your life, then this is probably going to be where you're finding your stumbling blocks to be when it comes to making the changes for your diet and exercise and actually seeing the results in your weight. So what are some of the symptoms or some of the things that can be affected by physical and emotional stress? First off is blood sugar regulation. That can really have a profound effect on our bodies, and that's one thing that probably we can recognize. I'll talk about symptoms in a minute, but we're also talking about it can affect our immunity, affect inflammation. That's especially, for people that do have illness or injury or are over-exercising. Brain function can be affected. Our thyroid and adrenal glands are really important hormone makers in our body, and they can be affected. And those are parts that we don't necessarily see really specific symptoms of, and we don't even really know that they're there. And so they can be really hard to identify when we don't know what's going on. Sleep patterns can be affected, and our reproduction systems can be affected as well. So some of the symptoms of chronic stress then, taking some of those areas that can be affected. Now, what are some of the things that we're going to see when we're being affected by stress? So maybe sudden weight gain or even loss is common. You probably might experience some weight gain because your eating habits are being thrown off by the stress. Maybe you're eating more, snacking more, eating emotionally more, or weight gain can happen despite not doing any of those things as well, because again of sort of the hormonal cascade that happens that causes our body to be in a little bit of trauma and causes our body to instantly want to kind of store fat rather than burn it. So we get shifted from a fat burning stage kind of suddenly with the onset of stress into a fat storing stage, and we're more likely to gain weight even if we're not changing our eating habits a whole lot. Some people do lose weight as well with chronic stress, because either their digestion goes off or they kind of lose their appetite when it comes to stress. So that happens as well, and usually, both ways. It sort of feels a little bit extreme. It's not sort of just a normal, ebb and flow of our weight gain or loss. It's quite extreme. PMS and other indications of hormone imbalances can be a real obvious one. Cravings for sugar or salt are common. Loss of muscle and rapid fatigue. So you may find that you don't have strength for a lot of things. You fatigue rapidly when you're involved in physical activity. Brain fog, lack of concentration are probably one of the most obvious ones as well. But again, sometimes we put these things just down to I'm tired or I'm not eating well. But actually our brain does get does feel the effects of stress in more than just those ways. You could be exercising a lot, but you're always tired and you're not losing weight anymore. Lack of appetite or extreme hunger all the time. It can go both ways. Lack of appetite, you're not eating anything, or maybe you still are eating something, but you're not eating as much as, you maybe typically do, but yet you're not even losing weight or, anything. Some people think, well, I'm not eating, I should be losing weight, but yet they're not, or maybe they're even gaining with their lack of appetite. That's definitely showing some dysfunction there. Or sometimes we feel hungry all the time, primarily because of cravings. Waking up in the middle of the night, can't fall back to sleep, or can't get out of bed in the morning. That's a really common one, especially when we go into menopause. The waking up in the middle of the night, can't fall back to sleep, has a lot to do with hormones, but we often have an onset of stress in those times of our lives as well, and so they can have a combined effect. Depression and anxiety is certainly one that we probably identify more with stress. When those symptoms start to show, but they can also lead to some more serious results as well. Okay, so we're going to talk about one of the most simplest ways that you can start to practice managing stress and learning how to unpeel those layers instead of adding to them. So the first thing we want to do is practice restoring, resetting, and rest. Restore, reset, and rest. This is going to be both a physical and mental practice for being able to do this on a regular basis. We need to nurture both our physical and our mindset space, our emotional health as well. And these things are really part of building a healthy body. So again, sometimes we think in terms of these practices of rest as, we're being lazy, we're not doing enough things to contribute to our well-being, but really this is contributing to your well-being. It is part of building a healthy body, is being aware of how to practice restoration, resetting, and rest. And again, like I've mentioned in previous modules, this can really come before nutrition and fitness in a lot of cases, and so being aware of where you stand in that circumstance can really be helpful in putting it all into order and making it work for you in the long term. So what you can do, we need to have a strategy to identify your triggers and be able to unwrap these layers, create an action plan for eliminating as much of the dysfunction as you have control over, because some of it we don't have a lot of control over, unfortunately, but we need to understand what we do have control over and where we can make modifications to our lives. So some of these ways that we can find our formula to peel away the layers are found in what we practice every day, and this is going to be unique for everyone. But some of the ideas that we can throw out there to try and start this process is long leisure walks. I really, really recommend leisure walking. It can reduce your stress. It's good for you. It's part of that movement plan in our fitness. And so it can really be a really, really helpful way to add in something to your life that will help to peel away the layers of the stress. Things like recreational reading, so something that's not stressful or you have to really use a lot of brain power for to read, can be helpful. Deep breathing exercises can be super helpful if you do them on a regular basis. Stretching, yoga, baths. Some people like Epsom salts in their bath. That's really helpful as well. Something you can relax in and enjoy time away. Sauna can be helpful. Some people enjoy that. Some people find that more stressful. So you have to pick and choose your battles. Listening to relaxing music can be helpful. Spending time with friends and loved ones, especially if those are not stress trigger relationships, and they help bring out some of that restoration for you, is great. Doing creative activities like arts and crafts, knitting, can really be helpful. Even dancing is helpful. Something that's a bit of a release for you, can kind of break free, have some fun, and really anything that's fun for you can also be a way to relieve that stress. And again, there's a million different answers to that, so you have to be looking for what that is in your life. And that's really the first line of defense in your stress, is the things that you can do in your life to help keep those layers from building up and peel away the layers that are already there. Your lifestyle should include strategies that allow you to feel relaxed, remove the triggers, intentionally seek restoration, rest, and reset. That's important to intentionally seek it, because if we don't, then we tend to ignore those things. It is something that becomes a habit, and so when it's part of your life over a period of time, it probably won't feel so intentional, but the difference is that you're doing it, you're not letting it go. So you want to make sure that you are creating space in your life for these things. Creating a regular habit of pursuing these things is part of that lifestyle that includes stress management. So what happens when we have a bit more of a deeper issue with stress? Again, you might fall in any place on this spectrum. And like I said, when we are doing our first line of defense lifestyle behaviors, actions, that is really where we can peel away the layers, and we can build up more health for our bodies. But sometimes there's more serious things going on, and when those things don't help as much as they should to get us back to feeling kind of normal again, then we probably need to find some more professional intervention. And this is really important because we're not often aware of how deeply our biology is affected by stress. And they say stress kills, and it can. Stress, it creates messes in our functioning, and usually to us in the naked eye it may seem totally unrelated to stress. We're not necessarily proficient at tying all those symptoms together. But really how we do, fix it is key to healing it. And I will make the point here that not all doctors are really good at helping people to fix stress. It depends on your doctor. Hopefully you have it. I've had a good doctor. I use a naturopathic doctor, and she's very helpful. And I've been through this myself recently, and it was really helpful to have somebody that understood what it was I was going through and knew how to help me with those symptoms and how to put them all together for me. But not every doctor knows how to do that. So I would urge you to make sure that you find a doctor that doesn't see you as stressed and want to put you just on an antidepressant, or sort of brushes away your stress and just sort of says, well, there's not much I can do for you. Life is stressful, so go on. Often, the symptoms are seemingly really disconnected, and you want to find somebody that knows how to put those dots together and help you with your unique symptoms and your unique formula for healing of it. So when we can only do so much within the realm of our rest and restoration and restoring practices in our own life, we want to dig deeper. Some of these places we're going to dig deeper into are some of the common imbalances and symptoms. So just to be aware that some of these things that can be affected are adrenal fatigue or burnout. So if you hear those keywords, that might be a good thing to explore. Adrenal function, thyroid imbalance, maybe even leading to thyroid disease, can also play a factor. Progesterone imbalance and estrogen issues. So in women, our adrenal glands can get overused when we're so busy and going. Our adrenal glands also produce our progesterone, which we think of as a female sex hormone, but it's actually produced in the adrenal glands. And so when the adrenal glands are overworking, they have to start to shut down some things that are kind of non-essential to actually keep you going. One of those things is they shut down progesterone manufacturing. And so we do need progesterone as women who are well functioning, and when we don't get it, that's going to cause a whole host of other problems in our hormonal balances, and that can be one of the symptoms that we see is changes in our periods. And so the fine line between progesterone and estrogen balance is really key as well to how we burn fat, store fat, all those things as well. So when that progesterone starts to become missing, it throws it off with estrogen, and it can also cause us to also make a lack of estrogen along the way too with some of these imbalances, and so then we tend to have a bit of a problem there. Or people that do have a high level of body fat may also be actually storing estrogens and have a really high estrogen content, and that can really throw things off as well. So either way, there's an imbalance there, and progesterone can be acutely affected when we're dealing with stress. Blood glucose levels can also affect cholesterol, so some of those readings when we go for a blood work can be thrown off, and so managing that also means managing stress. IBS, food sensitivities, so again some of those problems with our bowels, digestion, things like that, and cortisol swings in reversal. So when our cortisol is supposed to be behaving in a certain way during the day, that gets thrown off, and so we're tired in the morning, or we are get a burst of energy at night when we want to go to sleep, and that really can throw us off. So some of the symptoms, like I said, that we are going to experience from these areas that are affected: extreme fatigue, muscle weakness, thinning hair, irregular periods, and symptoms of PMS, mood swings, emotional instability, sugar cravings, midsection weight gain, digestive issues, trouble sleeping or staying asleep, and gaining weight despite a good diet and exercise. So those are things that are all across the board, and are things that probably a lot of women typically struggle with regardless. But in fact, those are all pieces of the puzzle that we can put together and find some support when we're working with our doctor. So working with your doctor, you want to be able to get testing done so that you know exactly what areas are being affected. So some blood work, maybe some cortisol tracking, looking at all of your thyroid components. So that's a good conversation to have with your doctor. Also having like I said, your progesterone and estrogen tested as well. So putting all those pieces together, you don't need to have it all done at the same time. It really depends on what you're experiencing. Your doctor, if they're good, they should be able to identify which test to start with and build your care plan from there. So you want to get those tests done, and then you want to probably work on therapies that are going to help build these things back up. So, you might need to take progesterone supplements. If it's a thyroid imbalance, there might be some thyroid help there. Adrenal really is going to be some of those lifestyle modifications. Managing the stress is really the best way to heal that adrenal function. Food sensitivities, you might be looking at some foods that are really causing you problems, and work with your doctor on identifying those. Managing those sugar cravings, and again, that's where some of those lifestyle practices come in, that we're being mindful of when those stress triggers come in and how to resolve them so that we're not throwing more sugar into our diet or whatever it might be. And then looking at our sleep patterns, and we'll talk more about sleep obviously in a minute, but controlling that cortisol that way. So that is really the keys with stress. And I've been through this myself, dealing with some severe stress, and it's amazing how my body started to change, and I didn't even recognize myself anymore going through this, but how actually not focusing on my diet and not trying to exercise more to lose the weight and all of that, that was a struggle not to make it the focus of that. But when I didn't include those things in my care, I included all these other parts that I needed to fix first, and it's amazing how my body started to resolve itself. So without even changes in diet, without adding in exercise, my body started to lose the weight that had been building up because of the stress, and everything had started to heal before I needed to even address diet or exercise. So it was actually a better thing that I was aware of all these things, so I didn't jump right into trying to diet and trying to add in more exercise and actually probably make it worse in the end. So just keep that in mind if that's something you're dealing with. To work through it methodically, don't just jump into what you think is best. Sometimes it's better to take a step back and look at it right from the beginning, and how to find that healing before you jump into anything more. So a few things to keep in mind, summing up stress. So become aware of how your body responds to stress, because that's essential to lifelong well-being. We're always going to be dealing with stress. Figuring out and making sure you have the appropriate responses is really crucial. Also, not everybody responds in the same way or to the same degree with stress. So what we're talking about here today, everybody's going to have a unique response. And different degrees. I'm really, really sensitive to stress. Unfortunately, I don't like that, but the fact is my body is very sensitive to stress, and I really have to be aware of what those triggers are and how to manage them. Other people may not have the same degree, or whatever stress they do experience, it just kind of goes in and out, and it's all fine, and that's great. I mean, we all just are different, and so knowing how our bodies respond is important. There's also a host of factors that make up stress and stress management formula for each person. So again, that's part and parcel with understanding that and what makes up your own formula. Stress is a key a key missing link to weight management in our modern society. It's really all about stress. The research is telling us this now, that it's not so much about our poor eating habits or lack of exercise that is contributing to our weight gain as a whole, or to our health issues. It's really the stress is the primary factor here, and that the many layers of chronic stress that we take on without realizing the profound impact it can have on our health is what is causing us problems. So, we tend to believe that we should be able to be super women and that we should be able to do everything, and we've got families, and we have jobs, and we have responsibilities, and we also probably more than ever have a bit more awareness as women around what we want, and even when it comes down to our weight and our figure and our looks and all of that, we put even that stress on ourselves. And so all those things can actually have a bigger impact than what we realize, or that we care to be aware of sometimes. So creating a healthy stress and life balance is also a foundation to achieving weight loss and keeping it off. So it's not just something we do today, it's something we have to keep doing, because that is going to impact whether we go back to our old habits again or not. Okay, so we're going to move on to sleep. This is the last little bit here. It's a little bit of a quicker section because sleep, of course, is linked to stress. And, of course, lack of sleep is going to add to our stress layers. So they're one kind of in the same. But sleep is a crucial part of the puzzle because sleep patterns and quality sleep patterns are a foundation to, again, our better health. It's a crucial part of the restore, reset, and rest model as well, of course. Sleep is part of that. Our sleep data can give us a lot of information about how our body is responding to stress. Often, like we talked before, that the lack of sleep we're getting, or our patterns of sleep that are causing us to wake up in the middle of the night, or not get sleep at night, or not be able to get up in the morning, those are good indications about what's going on in our body, and help us to fit the piece of the puzzle together. So sleep is a really crucial part of our action plan, and I'd even say for a lot of people, like, prioritizing sleep over fitness, or probably for most people even over nutrition, is probably a good place to start. So if you're really struggling with your sleep, I'd say if you can only do one thing, work on figuring out what's wrong with your sleep. And again, if it's linked to stress, go back to the stress. If it's just you're not in a good sleep routine because of your own doing, then fix that first before you try and do any of the other things, because that is going to be the key to get you onto being on track and feeling healthier, and everything else is going to work so much better. So let's get down to some ways to improve sleep right now. Tonight. So establish consistent bedtimes and wake times. Even on your days off, this should always be consistent, especially if you're struggling with sleep. Then it's really crucial that it's like your routine. You go to bed at a certain time and you wake up at a certain time. Don't deviate from that, and it should be adequate. You should be getting anywhere from 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Again, depends on the person, a lot of unique situations, but that is what is going to do your body best for most people. Another thing is to avoid stimulation for 1 to 2 hours before bedtime. So no phone, no TV, loud music, caffeine, all those things that kind of cause you to be up and going, and even exercise. Exercise for a lot of people is not good before you go to bed, or even late into the evening. Another thing is to dim the lights in the evening to encourage a natural day and night cycle. This is part of actually the stress on our bodies that they've done research on, trying to understand this better, and that because we have artificial light all the time, our bodies are kind of off cue with proper day and night cycles, and that can affect our sleep, and of course that's going to affect our stress, and even just the constant light actually does put stress on us. So make a point of dimming the lights in the evening. It will help your body to get into that rest and restore mode as part of that sleep cycle. Create a relaxing bedtime routine. This is kind of a no-brainer. I guess we all kind of know that bedtime should feel relaxing, but again, it's a good reminder, and maybe some things we can think of when it comes to our environments. So comfortable clothes, like what you are sleeping in, should make you comfortable, and your bed should feel comfortable. Dimmed light, again, in your room, that you're not going from bright light to no light and vice versa in the morning. Trying to drink a cup of herbal tea in the evening can really help. A lot of people sleepy time kind of teas, that can be helpful to help get your body into sleep mode. Again, relaxing reading, prayer, meditation, those types of things, or soothing music, or like a soothing sound that helps you relax, can be helpful. Some people often wonder whether it's good to eat before bed or not, and I wouldn't say that it's good or bad. It's what works for you. So a small non-sugary snack can be really helpful an hour or so before bedtime. What that is going to be different for everybody. It may be something that's like a carbohydrate. I'd stay away from anything that really is, mostly sugar. If you're dairy tolerant, then like a good Greek yogurt is good, with maybe some berries or some cocoa in it. Cocoa can be really helpful for relaxation and falling asleep as well. And magnesium. A magnesium supplement also helps to induce rest for the body and help you to get to sleep. Again, talk to your doctor if you have any questions about taking supplements. But because it depends on if you've got any other medications or anything. You want to make sure that it's not interacting in any way. So talk to your doctor. But for an average person, a lot of us are magnesium deficient. We tend to be, especially active people. So magnesium is actually really great to take. So sleep is the missing link. Review on sleep. Sleep is essential for the body and brain to focus on repairing your tissues and building new ones. That's when all the work happens. We need sleep so our body can regenerate. We don't regenerate, then we are not going to be very well functioning or efficient. We want our bodies to become well functioning and efficient, and sleep helps us do that. When we are well functioning and efficient, that lessens our layers of stress. It helps to peel away the layers of stress and helps to not build more. That is going to result in more balanced hormones, a well-functioning metabolism, and then we all know that when we have a well-functioning metabolism, it means that we're going to experience fewer cravings, we're going to have healthier hunger cues, increased energy, and the ability to put all of it into a bit of a better perspective. Keep it all in line, understand our bodies, be calm about it. It all helps to contribute to whatever those health goals are down the road, whether it's fat loss or it's just having more energy and enjoying our life a little bit more. But the key is, don't get stressed trying to avoid stress. Sometimes we go, oh man, now I got to try and do all these things to like not be stressed and to get better sleep. And now how am I going to do that? And it sort of just starts to stress us out, especially if you're really sensitive to stress and you take a lot on. You probably want to take this on too. So like everything else, it's best to address modifications one step at a time. Start by identifying one layer of stress that you might be experiencing. Just think of one thing that could be an obstacle in your way. Okay, then look for the trigger. What is maybe causing that, or is there a predictable circumstance that you can identify that when that happens? Create awareness around that trigger and identify one action you can take to move away from building on that layer. Okay, so find something that maybe it's, you want to create the awareness that this is happening. Okay, what can I do to remove it? So, again, there's a lot of things that are out of our control, and there are some things that are in our control. So if it's within your control, look to figure out how to stop building on that layer. And then make space for one restore, reset, or rest behavior to practice. And especially when some of those triggers are out of our control, then this is where we make space for these restore, rest, and reset behaviors can really help, because when we can't control, then we can add something into our lives that we can control, and we want that to be something that's going to be beneficial. So that's it for sleep and stress this week. It's a big topic again. There's probably lots of, and it's very individual, so there's probably lots more we could talk about here, which is why we're going to have our phone calls. So think about this. Have a look at the worksheet, which is going to be a little bit of review of what this module was about here in this video, and look at to see what identify some areas that we can start to take action with stress or sleep in the next week or so to get you moving in the right direction. So take care. Hope it's a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.